Hello, welcome to the Progressive Perspective. I'm Basil. I'm here with Kurt and Larry. Tonight we're talking about the eviction crisis. 40 million Americans could be facing evictions pretty soon. That's up from here, from 2.3 million in 2016. Now we're up to 40. Because people are out of work and
so people who are just under threat that if
yeah,
go
and it's not their fault. They're not being lazy. They lost their jobs. Everyone's just suffering during this whole coronavirus pandemic, and it's just terrible. And there's no help.
We know that in many countries they virtually replaced people's wages with government subsidies to get through the crisis, but in this country
can't get that.
Do that.
All you'll get is one $1,200 check. After that, like, go straight to hell. Republicans
without money in this country, that's what you do. You go straight to hell.
Republicans' response to this is, "Oh, you're losing your house. You're going to get evicted. Gosh, that sucks." And Democrats' response to that is, "Oh, you're going to get evicted? Well, I guess we can give you a lawyer." That's what Nancy Pelosi introduced to the House, I think back in June, is, "Oh, you'll get legal assistance." How about you fucking put a permanent moratorium on eviction until this friggin' crisis is over? They don't even try for that fight. They immediately surrender.
The Democratic establishment usually folds up pretty quick.
Yeah, they just preemptively quit.
Remember, Bernie and some others were doing the thing to hold the defense bill up until a vote on $2,000.
Yeah. And
I think it was 5 or 6 Democrats stood up. Most of the rest of them, they just caved.
And 5 Republicans joined them.
Yeah.
Our senator from Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, both were present and didn't support that. So we need to primary her. But it's not these people's fault. They didn't do anything wrong. Their representatives have failed them. Now 40 million people could potentially lose their houses. Now I'm very fortunate in that I was able to buy a house. And I have people who, if all goes to hell, I could count on them to take me in. So my threat of going homeless is extremely low. But I literally do not know what I would do if I was homeless.
And I'd like to point out too that a lot of those 40 million, a lot of that risk is because of the current administration. Now, the CARES Act is officially over. We're recording this on January 4th. January 1st, that expired. That was the protection that these 40 million people had from eviction. Their rent due didn't go away. They still owe that money. They just weren't legally allowed to be evicted. Well, that protection's gone. So now these 40 million people, now their landlords have bills, and now they have the law on their side, making these people financially ruined and homeless. That's a bad position to be put in by the people that you elected into office.
The number of homeless people by the end of 2019 was, I think, around 560,000 people. But that number is almost useless now, because after this year, that's almost going to certainly explode. So
yeah,
I can't freaking predict how many homeless people there's going to be, and they all need help. They all need social workers. They all need.
Well, we got to win January 5th in Georgia. That's got to be a must. But then either way, Biden's got to come in, and there's going to have to be day one EOs. There has to be, with the college debt and the homelessness. I mean, that's just something has to be done.
Well, they picked the wrong person. If we wanted something to be done,
You know, I was kind of researching a little on this stuff before the show, and there's some wild numbers, like you were saying, you know, and it really hits home. But one of the things I was reading is that even after the '08 crash, you know, and there was the foreclosure crisis, they still don't keep track of foreclosures. So now we're in this eviction crisis, and that's only rent. We're not even looking at the people that actually have homes and are losing those, you know, because we don't know the number of foreclosures because they still don't track it.
yeah. People go homeless because they can't afford rent, because living in America is just expensive.
Mhm.
It could be a whole hell of a lot more expensive if you're very unlucky. Healthcare costs can contribute to homelessness, student debt. Like if you, let's say you just catch a serious illness, God forbid, that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that just, I can't keep up with it. Like, and I'm well off. I have a good paying job, and you have savings, and I'd be financially destitute if I didn't have insurance, and if I caught, like, say, cancer.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You know, I got a college, got a field career, my field, and working, doing it for years and years. And I fell off my electric skateboard, had to go in, get a bunch of stitches and X-rays and all this, and with insurance, it was $2,300 later, you know. And then when I went to like call them and say, all right, well, let's make a payment plan. You know, this is what I can pay. They said, nope, this goes to our bank. This is what you're gonna pay, which was more than double what I said I could pay. And so then they just handed it to their bank, and now I pay their bank. I don't even deal with the hospital. Like, so now if I stop paying on it, it looks like I've defaulted on a loan, not a hospital bill.
God damn it. Our country's way too brutal, man.
And that puts me in a predicament, you know, like, yeah, on paper, I should be well off or comfortable. I should be comfortable.
Yeah.
I find myself not that comfortable. I mean, my kid's getting older. She's 15, but I should be more comfortable than I am. And when I have an accident, like a literal fall on a skateboard, and puts me in financial jeopardy, you know, and then they get their bank involved, like, what am I supposed to do? You know, I should be doing everything right.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of roboting out, Kurt. So no one ever really tries to solve homelessness. We have money for rich people. We don't have money for poor people. Every time you try to help poor people, suddenly, how are you going to pay for that? So I don't know if you guys have heard what Salt Lake City, Utah has been doing. They've just been giving homes to homeless people, and it turns out it worked out. There was recovery.
The best way to end homelessness is to build housing that people can get into. I believe that's what Finland does, for instance. They just build the housing units that people need. Or even Venezuela, where I've been, and you know, they built 400,000 units last year. They're going to build 500,000 units this year, and are constantly rehousing the poor, you know, making housing available.
And employs
where housing is not available and where it's extremely expensive, homelessness is more of a problem. Do you know where homelessness is the greatest problem in the country, or has the highest rate, is in Washington, D.C.?
Really?
I thought it was in California.
No, I mean, as far as an urban area, it's Washington, D.C.
Okay,
It's
in urban
very,
areas, yeah.
very high.
But like California's homelessness.
Yeah, so the average nationwide is something like 17 per 10,000. In DC, it's like 93 per 10,000.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not exactly sure, to tell you the truth, but I'm sure housing is expensive there, and it's probably just not very available.
Well, the program in Utah was working. They gave homeless people houses, and a social worker, because homeless people, if you've been homeless for like a long time, you need some mental help, and you need help reintegrating into society and into being a productive person. And so a bunch of people heard about that, and all of a sudden homeless people were going to Salt Lake City in Greyhounds. And because if I heard that that was happening, I'd be like, oh shit, and I was homeless, shit, help me out. Yeah, I need help. Help me out. And so it's completely understandable, but it exacerbates the problem. So it's a tough issue to solve. But Bernie,
Issues in general don't get solved in this country, even if some efforts are made to improve things a little bit. Very rarely does a problem get met head on and get solved.
yeah,
Usually by design, you know. I mean, look at how things operate in America compared to other countries, you know. When other countries go to war, they go to war and they solve the problem. Well, when we go to war, they're also on our payroll and we drag it out for eternity because that's how money is made here.
because the contractors need to get paid.
Contractors need to get paid. Yeah, it's just part of the process.
The last problem I think we solved really was gay marriage when the Supreme Court upheld it.
Yeah, thank
And aside from that, in my lifetime, I honestly can't think of a problem that we've.
That was amazing and wonderful progress. I think one of the reasons we could make that progress is because it didn't threaten the ruling class or their profits.
you.
Yeah, hating people doesn't really make money for Nike or for, you know, Islamophobia could, like, okay, we need to invade this country for oil. So I guess, start hating brown people again.
Look at what's the chicken place? They openly support anti-homosexual propaganda. What's that chicken place called? Oh my lord.
What, KFC?
No. It's a different one.
Popeyes?
No, I'll think of it later. I shouldn't even have spoke. I should have just kept my mouth shut. I was hoping you could
Provide a link in the description below.
Yeah. They're a sponsor. There will be soon. No, but yeah, they're I forget the name of the company, but they're openly Christian, like beyond the Christian beliefs, you know, and they openly are anti-gay.
I vaguely know what you're talking about, but it's vague.
I can picture it and everything. There's one in St. Cloud.
Yeah, but Bernie has a problem, has a plan for to address homelessness in America. I'll put a link in the description below. He wants to invest $1.4 trillion over the next 10 years into the National Affordable Housing Trust Fund to build, rehabilitate and preserve the 7.4 million quality and affordable and accessible housing units necessary to eliminate the affordable housing gap, which will remain affordable in perpetuity. Units constructed with this funding will be eligible to be located in mixed income developments. Use of federal preemption laws to ensure these new units are not segregated or included by local zoning ordinances. So basically there's just some rich people who are like, I don't want these fucking poor ass houses next to my house.
Oh, that company was Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A, yeah. You just thought of it?
No, I Googled it.
Okay. But I've read this over. I like Bernie's plan. I think Elizabeth Warren had a plan, but she kind of pissed that down all the drain on Super Tuesday.
Bernie almost always has a better plan.
Yeah.
But just tell a story about homelessness. I used to live in Tucson, Arizona, and there was a Catholic workers' house there that used to provide meals and some services to the homeless. And Every year in the winter, they'd have an event. People would be encouraged to bring sleeping bags and blankets for the homeless and stuff. And one Christmas, I went down there and um, gave a guy a sleeping bag. And after a while, he came back. He said, "I want to show you." He took me down to this dry river wash where he had a refrigerator carton, and he put his sleeping bag in there. And then he said, "Look, now it's like a real home." Um,
Hmm.
yeah, he was a veteran, and I think there are quite a few veterans that are homeless. Um, but that somebody would think of a cardboard box as their home, this is emblematic about how pathetic the situation is. And just a few months ago, I was down in Florida visiting family, and I noticed I was there for 10 days or 2 weeks. I noticed a couple of guys in back of a shopping center and some trees, and I'd been looking at them every day when I drove by. And I thought it was a couple of black folks back there. And one day I drove back to talk to them, or walked back to talk to them actually. And they weren't black people; they were just highly weathered white people. Two middle-aged guys, one of them in a wheelchair, living out under some trees, just
Hmm.
in a prosperous area.
Hmm.
You know, we're the richest country in the world, and we can't help these people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. What good is being the richest country in the world if life is miserable?
I
What would be what's the point?
I've obviously never been homeless, but there was a point when I was really young that we could have potentially lost our houses. It was during the 2008 financial meltdown, and um, my mom's aunt uh, signed on to a co-loan, and luckily we never got that bad. Um, but the fact that she was willing to do that was a huge comfort. And that if we lost our house, there was people we could count on to take us in.
I believe there were millions of people that did lose their homes.
Yeah, and we were lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
While
you
while the
kind of
banks
feel like you take everything
money.
for granted from time to time.
But there there are ways we could solve this, or at least make it less shitty. Passing Medicare for all is one of those ways. People would have more money in their pockets, and they wouldn't have to worry about going out of debt and going into bankruptcy uh, due to medical debt. Um, that's an easy one. Uh, we could,
Of course, you just need to appropriate the money and hire the workers and do the job and get the job done. But they'd rather spend money on the military,
yeah,
blowing things and people up than building what people need.
And to the point of how we pay for it, I would just like to point out to those people the same way we're doing to the immigrant children. They're paying $750 a day for each one of those children that they're putting in a cage and not even giving a blanket or a toothbrush. 750 a day per child. Now, if they can get that, why can't a homeless person?
There's corporations that make profit off that.
Yeah, see,
It's
that's the
corrupt.
difference.
It's corrupt.
Yep. So the money's there and then some, and it can be done. It's just cruelty is the point. Has become the default.
and for the how do we pay for that argument? Do these people
False
understand
argument.
that it's literally impossible for the government to become insolvent due to like debt? The government legally cannot declare, oh, we're in too much debt, so we're shutting down. That literally cannot happen.
I think if they don't pass a budget,
The government would still run.
I, I don't. I think it shuts down if they don't pass a
Well,
budget.
it shuts down, but like they're still supposed to show up to work. They're just not gonna get paid.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. You just don't get paid. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, they get back paid later on,
Yep.
supposedly, but it's
But the money's produced out of thin air anyway.
yeah,
There's always money.
yeah.
I mean, if they want to fight $1 trillion war, they don't have trouble finding the money.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it all matters in what you prioritize. So if
Yeah.
you're prioritizing corporate profits, you have money for that.
There's plenty of wealth in this country to do whatever we need to do, to provide everybody with the food, shelter, clothing, education, recreational opportunities, medical care. The wealth is there. It's just how it's used, how it's distributed.
People
Basically,
don't realize
who
that
steals it?
your life is going to improve by having everyone else's life around you improve.
Yeah.
Just because you don't get a free house or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're get the raw end of the deal. Your life is still going to improve. Everyone else is going to be better around you.
Or at least it won't get any worse. Other people doing well does not hurt you.
Right. Yes, exactly. But like even when you have a house, you buy a house, and then other people move in next door and they update their house because they're doing well. Well, now your property value goes up because now their house is nicer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, these things have benefits to them.
Well,
and I've been in New York City twice, and that's the most amount of homeless people I've ever encountered, and the amount of hate that they receive is it's hard to even fathom.
Yeah.
And then I think to myself, okay, well, there's so much hate towards these people. You think that they wouldn't mind, just doing a little to help them and get them out of your way, get them out of your eyesight. You don't want them next to your building? Well, let's do something about it.
I don't understand how someone can hate.
It's crazy. Like
blame the victim.
Yeah, it's like this.
Victim. And the system kind of runs on, acting as if people are responsible for their own conditions. They didn't try hard enough. They made bad choices.
Bootstraps.
But all of our problems stem from capitalism. I mean, why are people homeless? Affordable housing is not available because the construction industry makes more money if they build luxury housing than if they build affordable housing. At some point in history, there was good things about it, bad things about it, but the mental health institutions were largely closed down, and a lot of people with mental illness ended up on the streets without the services that they needed. So now prisons and jails are basically our psychiatric institutions. Wars lead to people being injured psychologically as well as physically, and leading to problems where people are sometimes dysfunctional and end up on the streets or are abusing substances and living on the streets. I mean, all the problems are interconnected because we don't have a system that's built to take care of people's needs. It's to earn profits for those people who already have more money than they know what to do with. If we were feeding, housing, clothing, educating, providing health care for people, then people would be productive, more happy, there'd be less crime, there'd be less violence. People are not, as was someone said earlier, not that happy in the United States of America. Mental health is not that good. Social health is not that good. Relationships are not that good. Marriages are not that stable. Child abuse, spousal abuse, substance abuse, all these things are serious problems because people don't get what they need.
I think it's important to remind to say that when you're driving like through Minneapolis and you see like some homeless people, you should remind yourself that just because you have wealth and you have this car and you have a house, you're not better than them. You're just luckier than them. You know, like some of these people, they're just had one terrible day where they lose their job and now they can't pay the rent. And now they're this shitty helicopter tailspin of bullshit, and their life is ruined and their credit is ruined. And how do you get a job after you're homeless? Where do you send it? Where do you send our check to?
Or if a racist system sends you to prison and you get out and you're pretty much out of the job market and the housing market.
Well, you have a felony. We can't hire you.
Yeah, it's
So-
you know, one thing we haven't mentioned is this whole housing thing is really class warfare.
Yes.
My mom,
point.
who we've talked about before, is a capitalist, I would say neo-Nazi, and she is also a landlord. She buys houses, fixes them up, and then rents them out. Rents them out. And I've seen, this is, you know, growing up, I've seen how she works and that whole mentality of you know what it is. But it's class warfare. That's exactly what it is. They won't do anything because that's how they keep the thumb on them. There is no foreclosure record because we don't want to be able to do something about it. They keep the thumb on them. You know, it's like all by design.
Not sure how many people are going to get this reference, but in Futurama, there's an episode where Richard Nixon's character is like talking shit about poor people, and the main character's like, "Yeah, I hate the poor," and someone asks him, "Well, aren't you poor?" It was like, "Yeah, but someday I might be rich, and then poor people like me better watch out." Like,
I love that show.
I
Love that show.
Futurama's great, by the way.
It is.
It's so much fun.
And what you're saying is true, and that's, you know, even true to today. Like, it seems like with all the people in the low income areas that vehemently vote Republican,
That hate
and
themselves.
vote for the rich people, like, you're not voting in your best interest, you know.
Well, but you know, the media, the mainstream media, I mean, that's class warfare too. People are misinformed, and they're exploited and manipulated to act counter to their own interests.
So Republicans are right about one thing. There is someone screwing them over. They're wrong about who's screwing them over, but they're right that they are being screwed over.
They're always manipulating people to believe that they've got an enemy, but it's not the ruling class of the United States, which is their real enemy.
There's someone pulling the strings. It can't be that rich guy over there. It's this immigrant that just crossed the border. They're the real enemy.
Yeah.
There's someone lesser than I.
Take your job or use up your tax dollars, when really they come do essential work and work harder than anyone in the community and are more liable, in general, more law-abiding than the average Native American, not Native American, native-born white American.
Than your average person.
By the way, Native Americans
they're
are
afraid of getting
highly susceptible to homelessness. I think Pacific Islanders are the highest, and then Native Americans and other racial minorities suffer homelessness.
Yeah, that's
They
very
suffer
true.
everything else at higher rates.
Yeah, because that's very
Because
true.
it's class warfare, as Kurt said.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and that's a whole nother thing for another time, because when we talk about privilege through law and order, they get the opposite, and they have always had law and order against them. Like, you know, does that make sense? I'm not articulating
Well,
what I want to say, but
you know, much of law in this society is to keep common people down. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So in an idyllic society, we wouldn't have this problem. This pandemic. What should have happened was Congress should have passed a like monthly or weekly stimulus to keep people at home for a long enough period for the for COVID-19 to run its course and go away, and then everything would go back to normal. That's not at all the fucking
And we
society
didn't
that we
have a
have.
really functional public health system to begin with.
Right.
You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic without a functioning public health system and without universal medical care for people. So, you know, it's obviously not going to work out very well, and it certainly has not.
But I,
And remember, at the very beginning of this pandemic, Trump signed the bill that the food stamp program, what do they call that, WIC or something now, would expire after 3 months of unemployment. He signed it, got shut down there shortly after. He signed it. So the president of the United States signed a bill that would have your
There's always a war on the poor. They're always ready to take something away
it's
from
crazy.
from
And then the people I work with, when that happened, they were like, yeah, like, what's wrong with you people?
they celebrate brutality.
They do.
They-
Yeah.
They
Well-
celebrate viciousness.
Yeah.
While they're changing the laws to make it so that money keeps funneling into the pockets of the people that already have it, they want working people to believe their enemies are somebody that needs food stamps or somebody that needs some other assistance from the government instead of the people that are robbing us blind.
So we're running out of time. I want to end this on a call to action. I want to see us bail out homeowners in this country. I want to see us bail out people in desperate need. I want Nancy Pelosi to put that on the floor. So
you'd like to see some legislation
Yes.
along the lines of what Bernie would like.
yes, and now is the time because okay, she's the speaker now. She's been reelected as speaker. Now we can make her life live in hell without any consequences, without any like, oh, but there's a chance that Republicans could be Speaker of the House. No, there isn't anymore. Let's just kick her ass. Let's just make her life a living hell.
But she is who she is.
Yeah.
And
Let's
she's
just-
a representative of the ruling class. I mean, she's a extraordinarily wealthy person herself. She's shown over a lifetime where her interests lay, and it's not with us.
Yeah. And so we just have to push them in a ideological direction. We have to push them to action. Their main priorities, if you ask them, are protecting Obamacare, protecting abortion rights, and sitting on their ass. We need
That's
to,
protecting Obamacare, so we really don't get Medicare for all, which is what we really
yeah,
need.
that's code word for let's just do nothing. So this has been the Progressive Perspective. Join us next week. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Basil.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you later, guys.
See ya.